Look at water, not a swimming pool, not a bathtub, a real body of water, a river with a current you can't see, a lake with a bottom you can't touch, an ocean that doesn't care whether you exist. Now imagine you have never been taught to swim. No one has. The concept doesn't exist yet, and someone just walked in and didn't come back out. For more than 95% of human history, drowning was not an accident with a name. It wasn't a tragedy with a funeral and a news report. It was something far more terrifying. It was a person, someone you knew, someone you ate with, someone you slept near around the fire, disappearing into something invisible, taken by nothing you could fight, taken by nothing you could even see. To an ancient human witnessing this for the first time, drowning didn't look like death. It looked like the water ate them. Let's go back, way back, 100,000 years ago, somewhere in East Africa. A group of 15 people moving along a riverbank, following the water because water means food, means animals, means survival. One of them, a young man, steps too close to the edge. The bank gives way. He goes in. The current is faster than it looks. He doesn't scream for long. And then the river is just a river again, moving, indifferent, unchanged. The group stands at the bank, and they have absolutely no framework for what they just witnessed. Here is what modern scientists and anthropologists believe happened inside those ancient minds in the moments after. First, paralysis. Not the polite, civilized paralysis of shock we experience today, where we freeze for a moment and then reach for our phone. This was a deep, biological lockdown, a full system override. Because the human brain, ancient or modern, is built to respond to threats it can categorize. A predator, a rival, a falling rock. The fight-or-flight system kicks in because the brain knows what to do. But a person vanishing into water? No predator to fight, no direction to run. The threat has no shape, no smell, no sound anymore. The brain doesn't know what to do. So for a moment, it does nothing. Then comes the second phase. And this is where it gets strange. The witnesses didn't jump in. We romanticize bravery. We assume that love and loyalty would drive someone, anyone, to leap into that river after their companion. But almost certainly, they didn't. And here is the brutal, uncomfortable reason why. They had never seen anyone survive water like that. They had no concept that survival was possible. To their minds, the water had taken their companion the same way a lion takes prey, completely, finally. With no negotiation, jumping in would not have been seen as a rescue attempt. It would have been seen as suicide. The ancient human brain was ruthlessly logical about this. You do not follow prey into the predator's mouth. You do not step into the fire to save someone already burning. The water had taken them. The water would take you, too. But what happened next is perhaps the most human thing in this entire story. They stayed. They didn't leave immediately. They didn't move on the moment the body disappeared. Evidence from early human behavioral studies and from modern indigenous groups who have maintained ancient traditions suggests that early humans lingered at the site of death, sometimes for hours, sometimes through the night. They watched the water, waiting on some instinctive level for the person to come back, because the human brain has a feature, a deeply ancient feature, that makes it almost incapable of accepting sudden disappearance as permanent. When someone you know and depend on simply vanishes, the brain does not immediately file them under dead. It files them under missing. It keeps scanning for them, keeps expecting to see their face at the edge of the firelight, keeps listening for their footstep. Grief researchers today call this searching behavior. It is the same instinct that makes a modern person keep checking their phone after someone they loved has died, still expecting a message, still half waiting. The ancient witnesses stood at the riverbank and watched the water and waited for something that would never surface. And then the fear set in, a specific, textured, ancient fear, not just fear of the water. That was already there. This was something deeper, because they had watched the water take a person whole and give nothing back. In the ancient mind, this meant only one thing. Something lives in there. Anthropologists studying the mythologies of isolated indigenous cultures across 6 continents have found a remarkable pattern. Almost every culture, with no contact with each other, independently developed the concept of a water spirit, a water demon, something beneath the surface that pulls people down. The specifics vary: a serpent, a hand, a shadow, a voice that calls your name. But the core belief is identical everywhere. The water is not empty, the water is hungry, and it chooses. This belief was not superstition born from ignorance. It was the ancient brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, finding a pattern, assigning an agent, creating a story that explains the unexplainable. Because a world with a water demon in it is terrifying, yes, but it is survivable. If something chooses its victims, then something can be negotiated with, appeased, avoided. You can learn its rules, A world where people simply vanish into water for no reason, claimed by nothing, is far more terrifying. Because that world has no rules at all, and so the ancient humans standing at the riverbank did something extraordinary. They started making rules. Don't go near the water after dark. Don't go in alone. Don't go in when the water is moving like that. Don't make noise near the edge. Offer something before you drink. Ask permission before you cross. These weren't superstitions. They were the first drowning prevention protocols in human history. Clumsy, mythological, built on fear rather than physics, but they worked. Because a tribe that feared the water appropriately stayed further from the edge, crossed rivers more carefully, kept children away from the bank, and survived longer than the tribes that didn't. Now here is the part that should stop you cold. You still have this. Every version of this fear is still sitting in your nervous system right now. The reason you feel uneasy standing at the edge of a cliff over water. The reason a dark lake at night produces a different quality of fear than a dark room. The reason even experienced swimmers report a sudden irrational panic when they can no longer see the bottom beneath them. That is not irrationality. That is memory. Tens of thousands of years of it, compressed into a single moment of unease. And the stories, the water demons, the sirens, the kelpies, the river spirits, the rusalka, the vodyanoi, the naga, the jengu, every culture, on every continent, pointing at the same dark water and saying the same ancient thing. Something is down there. There isn't. We know that now, but for most of human history, the people who believed there was lived longer than the people who didn't. The young man who fell into the river 100,000 years ago was never recovered. The group moved on eventually. They had to. Survival doesn't pause for grief, but they never crossed a river the same way again. They taught their children about the water. They passed the fear down, generation to generation, wrapped in story, wrapped in warning, wrapped in the shape of a monster lurking beneath the surface. They gave the water a face so they would never forget to be afraid of it. And somewhere in your DNA, in the oldest, quietest part of your brain, that lesson is still running. The water has a face, and it is looking up at you right now.